We are here down in Tucson with the producers of the very famous Whiskey Del Bac amongst whiskey connoisseurs and whatnot of Arizona. And this is one that I've personally been excited for. Eric, you've interviewed here before, but this is a new one for me.
Yeah.
So if you guys wouldn't mind, would you go ahead and introduce yourselves and who you are?
Sure.
Yeah,
you want to start?
I'll start. I'm Amanda Paul, and I co-founded Del Bac with my dad back in 2011 was when we became legal, I should say. So that was when we got our license. I was living back in New York after graduating NYU, and we both come from design backgrounds, my dad and I. And he'd been hobby distilling for a couple years down in Tucson, and then what he was making was starting to taste pretty good after making like a lot of really bad shit for a while.
It's true.
So, we got some investment and went from a little 5-gallon kind of hobby still to a 40-gallon still. We went to market on that. And then, 10 years later, here we are.
And a lot has changed in 10 years of distilling in Arizona specifically, huh?
Yeah.
It has, yeah. So I think we were the second distillery to start in Arizona. The one up in Kingman, what is it? Desert Diamond, I think.
Desert Diamond, yeah.
Yeah. They've been around a little bit longer than us, and so the city of Tucson didn't know what to do with us, and so that was a little bit of a hurdle. The state, about 2 years later, designated a craft distiller's license, which we didn't have when we first started.
Yeah.
It's called a Series 18.
Didn't have, as far as like it wasn't even available. Like,
Yeah,
wasn't
we
even an
started
option.
on a Series 1 producer's license.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
now most, all craft distilleries operate under a Series 18 craft distiller's license.
Gotcha.
There wasn't a ton of precedent when we first started. So it was a long process to get legal for sure.
When you approached them, did they look at you like you're a moonshiner, like some,
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, the city did not know what to do with us.
Yeah.
We'd go to them with questions, and they'd just kind of say, no one's ever asked us that before, in the time that they'd been working at the city. So it was a interesting process.
Yeah, the state was a little easier, but then when they decided that it was time to initiate that Series 18 craft distiller's license, that really changed a lot and really enabled more distilleries to get going.
Yeah, it definitely opened the doors for people. It simplified the process. So we're hoping that continues and that, more people start producing spirits in the state.
Yeah.
We've got some great spirits
We
going in this
really
state.
do.
Yeah.
We do.
It's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice community
Yeah.
of producers as well. Everyone's really supportive of one another, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So you mentioned that you're both designers. Take us way back. What originally was your inspiration behind getting into design, and what was that kind of journey?
Boy, I started, I'm a school teacher by training. Did that for 8 years in my 20s, and then went to architecture school for a couple of years. Decided I'd be ancient by the time I was licensed, because it's a 5-year program, 3-year apprenticeship. So I started this little company that did historic restorations downtown.
Okay.
And working on old adobes in our neighborhood. Somebody wanted me to build some built-in closets in this lovely old adobe, and I talked them into letting me build something that would have been more historically appropriate, which was a couple of armoires. Those came off really well. They then asked me to do a kitchen, which I was like, whoa, okay. Did that. And then, anyway, that kind of evolved into a furniture design company called Arroyo Design that really specialized in regionalism, both design-wise and materials-wise. So we did a lot of things that were Victorian-based on periods, the kind of Victorian era from Tucson. Called it our Presidio collection. We did other things as well, but and then the kind of wonderful thing that happened was I realized early on that if you wanted, as a furniture designer, if you wanted visually spectacular grain, you had to go to rainforest woods. And I was not inclined to do that. And I kind of looked around and realized that we have this incredibly beautiful wood growing all around us in the Sonoran Desert, mesquite. We're actually sitting in mesquite chairs as we talk here.
Is this table mesquite?
And you can, the table is Arizona ash with a little bit of mesquite inlay.
Okay.
And then
nice.
also the dark spots are ironwood inlay. But so I started this, Arroyo design using mesquite. And so the great thing was that, I'm a desert guy, grew up in the desert, traipsing around, long relationship with mesquite trees, chewing on mesquite beans when I was a kid because they're sweet. I don't know if you've ever done that, but
no,
I'm gonna now.
Now you will next time.
I will.
You see them dry, in June. So that business came from a real profound love of place. Amanda and I both grew up in the desert. And so the ability to make furniture out of this, resource that was from the Sonoran Desert was awesome. Yeah. And then, so you guys may have heard this story, but I would always take my mesquite scraps home to barbecue with. Mm-hmm. And I would always tell my wife, Elaine, Amanda's mom, those are our profits going up in smoke. Wink, wink. And
so many dad jokes.
And one night we're drinking scotch and barbecuing, and Elaine goes, "Why couldn't you dry malt over a mesquite fire instead of a peat fire like they do in Scotland?" So that was kind of round two of this opportunity to use a local resource from a place that I just, have a strong relation, a love of. And So yeah, that's how that all started. And then Amanda, just timing-wise, was fantastic because I thought she'd never leave New York. Seriously.
You love New York?
I
so
did.
You grew up here?
I grew up here,
okay.
But my mom's from Brooklyn Heights. Okay. So I was like fifth generation to live in the same neighborhood. And I went to NYU. I was there for 10 years. And I loved it, but I love the desert. I love Tucson. Yeah. I mean, I had a great time growing up here. I wasn't one of those kids who turned 18 and couldn't wait to get out. I was genuinely sad when I went off to college. So, and my dad and I are super close, and we both, I was working for an architecture firm back there, and then my mom and I had a design studio and a retail store. So we were both working all the time, and we rarely got to see each other. So it was a cool opportunity to do something together. Yeah. I don't think we knew it.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah. You had a retail store in New York?
Yeah, down in Tribeca. Actually, where we sold my dad's mesquite furniture too, which was really cool. Yeah,
among lots of other things.
But we did a special line for that store out in New York. So yeah, it was kind of I was ready to leave the city and come back to the desert, so it was kind of a serendipitous.
But I was shocked.
Thing. I know you were. I think you still are. And I've been here for 10 years.
You weren't expecting that.
No. I mean, how would a 30-year-old, 28-year-old or so at that point, leave New York? Because it's,
come back to the old Pueblo.
Yeah.
Because it's awesome.
Heck yeah.
And it really is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, Tucson is an incredible place.
It really,
there's a great sense of community here.
Yeah.
The creative class is huge here in all sectors, the arts and the sciences and
food, agriculture, music. Yeah, it's just, it's incredible.
It's a fun place to live.
It's got personality. It definitely has personality.
Yeah.
And I think it was a perfect place for us to, kind of take on a venture like this. This was not an easy thing to do, and we needed a lot of help from a lot of different people who were gracious enough to give their time and insight and information. So it was kind of the perfect community for two people with a design background to go into a business we knew nothing about out
Moonshine.
the gate.
Like
Yeah.
that's like
you
a
know?
Hollywood movie right there, right? Two Hollywood, two New York designers coming.
Yeah. And my poor mother is really regretting asking that question now. She's like, oh man, like I was hoping your dad would retire. He turned 70 this year. So she's still hoping he's going to retire soon, but I don't see that happening.
I don't. I've met him a couple times.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening.
No.
I see that in him.
Yeah, totally.
We do have a CEO now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kent, who was out there earlier, but so he's amazing, and he's taken a bunch of load off me.
Yeah,
and so,
he came from High West Distillery out in Park City, Utah.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of operational stuff for them, and so he's changed our lives for sure. I think we'd grown this business to a point where it was bigger than our experience. So it was definitely time to bring in someone who could help us and all of the things that we don't know and still don't know. And he does that.
Yeah.
And he's lovely. So it's been great.
That helps. That definitely helps. Yeah. Well, so where did it? So you're moonshining in the backyard, right? Where does it turn into? where does it go from being like this is fun to let's do something with this? Like this is something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so it did. Like Amanda mentioned, it was starting to taste good after a couple of years, and
How many batches? Like how many did you have to stomach before it? Like
Many.
I mean, it's hard to remember that, but just I guess suffice it to say that like there was some real bad stuff.
I think we still have it too. I think we archived a lot of the stuff that was just
bottles.
like undrinkable, and I've always kind of wanted to like break it out one day just to like remember how bad it truly was and how far we've come.
Well, based on what you told us, today might be that day, right? To like remind you, like, all right, this is why we're doing this. Yeah.
But yeah, so then we bought a 40-gallon still, and somebody gave us money to like go into official product development phase. And so when somebody gives you money, then like all of a sudden you got to like be serious.
Yeah, you got to perform.
And so that's that's
totally.
kind of the point at which we kind of tripped over into seriosity. And so that was in 2011, and we took product to the local Tucson marketplace in late 12 or early 13. And it was very warmly received. It was really heartwarming to just realize how excited Tucson was.
Yeah.
Because it was my, I'm going to be 38 this year. And we went to Cafe Passe on my 30th birthday. And they were the first bar that actually got it on the back bar. So we were able to go have a drink of Whiskey Del Bac.
Yeah. And we were out to dinner.
Time.
We were out to dinner on Congress Street. David, the bartender there, called me up and said, "Stephen,
we have
your Dorado."
Yes.
And
so we rushed over there,
so
so that's when it hit market.
Yeah.
What was that? I mean, that feeling has got to be surreal.
It was very
exciting.
surreal. It was really surreal. We have a picture.
And
of it.
we were like, "Oh, this tastes pretty good.
Yeah.
Like this isn't bad."
Yeah.
We have some fun pictures from that night. But yeah, and then we, then things kind of progressed and we got more interest and, started looking into expanding production. So we raised some more capital and then we started build out in this current location, I think in 2012, 13.
No, 14.
But didn't we? I thought we officially were in production by 2014.
Yeah, so we actually
the build out took quite
about
some time.
Yeah, it was about a year.
Yeah.
And we became operational in this spot
December of 2014.
Yeah, in December of 14.
Yeah. And now we're as you guys know, because you heard all the noise earlier. We're working on expanding in this space currently, but we'll probably outgrow this facility in the next couple of years too. I mean, we've already outgrown it. So it happened really fast. All of a sudden, 10 years.
Yeah.
That story just progressed really quickly.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
We're doing this next thing. Here we
I
are.
know.
expanding.
I'm like, God, I'm exhausted.
When we've gone through two different careers that are not very closely related.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some overlap, but we're talking about you retiring someday, and it takes a certain type of person to make it in one field, and then to kind of start from scratch and redo that entirely in something unrelated. You can tell that when you pick something up, you have a passion for it. And I think that, when you look at the bottle, the background that you explain makes a lot of sense, because it feels like a historic bottle. It feels like something that's been made for 100+ years.
Cool.
And the whiskey component, the mesquite component really ties it to, it almost feels even more historical with that lens of looking at the whiskey. So as you were growing and adding accounts over the years, would you say that there was a single thing that kind of really caught people's attention? Is it the mesquite, or was it just the whole experience of Whiskey Del Bac?
I think it was, part of it was the mesquite. I think, one of the biggest things that I encountered early on, when I would go to New York or Texas, or we would work in the market, I'd go into an account and kind of, present the bottles. And the first thing people would ask me was where do you source your juice? Because, most of what we drink is sourced, and it's made at the same, mega distillery.
Yeah.
So I think being 100% own make, really makes an impression upon people. And I think the fact that it's a family business, and that my dad and I are so involved. I mean, we did we were the only two people doing market work for so many years. So we'd do market. We were the salespeople, the janitors here. You know what I mean? We really did all of it. And I think that genuine aspect of it really resonated with people. What?
Well, I was going to say too that the regional aspect has been real key. The fact that we were making something that was truly from the desert kind of captivates people. Mesquite has always had a kind of mystique about it. It's kind of this wild, desert tree that can either be real scrawny and rangy if it doesn't have water, but it can grow big and tall and broad if it does have water. It's very adaptable. There's kind of a lore to mesquite, and so that kind of mystique does grab people. And the fact that no mesquite whiskey existed, mesquite smoked whiskey existed before, kind of grabbed people, and I think still does.
Yeah.
Well, and I think,
sure.
I think we skipped over the obvious one, which was that we're producing American Single Malt. And, 10 years ago, there weren't that many American Single Malt producers in the country. It's still not a federally recognized category. We're hoping that's going to change in December.
Interesting.
Yep. But it's, it's kind of been the outlier for a long time. So I think that really caught people's attention too. It's, it's kind of a weird choice to be we're going to start a distillery and we're going to make American Single Malt and we're going to make it all ourselves. So I think when we meet people, they're what made you choose that? And I don't know why we chose that, because it's been a process, but it's I think single malt in general is part of the interest for people.
Yeah. I think when I was, having to deal with mesquite suppliers and other people that started working in mesquite, I realized at some point that all these people that were kind of got excited about mesquite were kind of dreamers in a way. They all kind of had this romantic notion
of the Southwest.
And that they wanted to tame this wood. I mean, this is going back to the furniture, but
I'm sorry to interject, but the way you spoke about it right there, it's it captures a spirit. It's not just a product, but it's when you look at these bottles and it's got the gold foil to it, or I don't know exactly the process, but I assume it's something like that. You see that, and it almost makes you feel like you're a cowboy when you drink it in a certain way or something like that. And I think the tie-in of the wood that you're doing furniture work with, the mesquite wood, I think that's such an interesting tie-in. And I think that, you guys were talking about you were doing the sales and things like that. It gives you such an intimate relationship with the business that almost mystical cowboy flavor, if you will, gets imparted on the whiskey, which I
Yeah.
think is pretty incredible.
Yeah, this, somebody said showing up is 80% of success. And, basically we've been showing up
Yeah.
the whole time, just doing whatever it takes. But also, when you mentioned that, it made me think we should talk about our brand a little bit. And so,
Yes.
so our goal in our imagery and our name came from just wanting to express where we're from. And we didn't want to put a cowboy on the label per se, or anything like that. And so we chose the pretty iconic, saguaro from the Sonoran Desert. And then the name actually came from our Spanish mission here in Tucson, San Javier del Bac, founded in 1692 by Jesuit missionaries, and it was founded at a place where there was surface water along the Santa Cruz River. And most of your listeners know, at least your Arizona listeners know, what we call, what we call rivers here look like. Usually dry. So the native Tohono name for that is a Bac, B-A-C. And that just literally translated as a place where the river reappears in the sand.
Wow.
It turns out that, so I've always loved living in a border region because it makes you look at the world in different ways. The mix of cultures and, foods and things just make it so exciting and kind of, fleshes out a whole experience that is not found in other places. And I'm sure any border region is the same way. But after we branded Whiskey Del Bac, and so Elaine, that was Elaine's idea as well.
I know. Poor mom.
I know.
All these good ideas.
I've always called her Idea Woman. So to name it after the mission was kind of cool. And I realized later that our brand is trilingual. So del is the Spanish word for of the or from the.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, San Xavier, from the place where the river reappears in the sand. And so Whiskey Del Bac is actually has the English thrown in too. So English, Spanish, and Tohono.
Yeah, so it's whiskey of the place where the river reappears in the sand.
Yeah.
So my dad always goes insane when people call it Del Bac whiskey because it's not actually grammatically correct. So
what would it be called then? So what do we have in front of us here? You've got a few different options, right?
So the first thing I did to just learn how to make a single malt whiskey was our classic. And it is, so was before I had any notion of, how to make any kind of whiskey.
Okay.
And before I knew how to malt barley. And so this was kind of the first attempt to just establish kind of a baseline whiskey, single malt whiskey. And so it's not smoked. Actually, we have some poured in glasses if you guys want to.
Oh, yes, I would.
Try some.
Take a whiff on the way
And so
through.
most breweries don't malt their own malt.
No, breweries or distilleries. So that makes us kind of unique in a way. So we're one of only a handful of distilleries in the country that malt our own barley.
Okay.
We only know of about 12. There may be more. So there are a lot of little craft malt houses springing up around the country. But as far as distilleries that malt, we're just one of only a few. So we used to malt all our barley, even for the classic here. A couple of years ago, I realized, that's crazy. It's very labor intensive. So now we only malt our own barley for the Dorado, the mesquited Dorado. But as far as the classic goes, it's modeled after a Speyside Scotch. And in that region of Scotland, they don't use peat, or very much peat anyway, to dry their malt. And so and my specific target, my kind of model for the classic, was the Macallan 12 year. That was always my go-to Scotch when I was out in a restaurant, because it's widely available, reasonably priced, and a really good, single malt Scotch.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and not for exact flavor profile. I was looking for caliber, like a level of quality, not specific flavor profile. So these days I always encourage people to try our classic against, taste it side by side with the Macallan 12 year, because it's a really interesting exercise.
I like that.
He loves that exercise.
Yeah. Sounds like a great exercise. Yeah. I can get into exercise more if that's what we do.
Who doesn't love just whiskey tasting in general.
Yeah. Well, especially when there's some education behind it of like kind of things to look for, and here's how, what to compare. This is fantastic. This is. I know I've had it before, but
you're pretending like you aren't very familiar with the flavor. We are. Yeah.
I think it's continuing to get better though. We had a really incredible distiller who was with us for many years, Nathan Thompson Avellino, and I think he really took this product to the next level, and I just think it continues to get better and better. We're still in small barrels. We're really hoping to start to put some stuff away in some 53s, because the baby barrels are difficult and they're not cost effective either. But when we can really start to let things sit in a larger barrel for a longer amount of time, we're going to get a more balanced product at the end of the day. But it's come a long way.
It has, and having said that, I got to point out that we're getting like great reviews.
We are. That's right.
Double golds at like the largest competition.
Those are
in the country.
awards.
I was say those aren't reviews.
Those are awards.
That's awards.
But I actually think the reviews are kind of more important to me. I think, I don't know. We had been submitting for some years, and we just got our first over 90 point review from Whiskey Advocate.
No, it was,
we did for Fall Distillers Cup. We got a Advocate, 91 point. And then Wine Enthusiast gave the classic, what we're drinking now, a 93 point this February, this year. Yeah. So that was really exciting.
Yeah. Well, because I would assume those types of things come with more feedback, right? There's more, they kind of dissect it a little bit more. I guess at the competitions, they do that as well, right? Do they or not?
They do, but it seems like there's so many entries in the competitions, and frankly, they give out, 6 golds for the same, category. And so there's it just doesn't seem like it's quite as impactful as a reviewer who tries your stuff, gives it a rating, and then talks about it for a while.
I think, you have to pay to enter competitions. So there's like something more exciting about a review that you didn't, pay for. You know what I mean? And then there's, and then with the reviews, there's, always, editorial and like more of a discussion around it, which I think is always, we're super big into education and talking about the product and transparency of process and what we do and how we age and all of that stuff. So I just think with the reviews, it's way more engagement, which is cool.
Yeah.
So, that's obviously a level of success that you may or may not have dreamed of when you first started things out. And, I want to kind of contrast that with, you said you were doing the sales and the janitorial work and whatnot. That, there is obviously a very heavy grind there. So I'm curious, what are the differences in lifestyle like for you guys, changing from that and kind of evolving things to the way they are, and for the business as well?
That's a good question.
Well, so, now that we did just completed another fairly large capital raise, 1.8 million. Yeah. That was in 2020.
And a hell of a year to try to raise almost $2 million.
And so through those funds, we were able to pay for our CEO. He's been with us for a year and a half now.
Yeah.
So we had to scrimp at first to be able to afford him. But then...
But we've expanded the staff as a whole.
Thanks to Kent, we've brought on an Arizona State sales manager.
Yep.
Okay.
Tom Jonovich, he's amazing.
Who's awesome. We have added brand ambassadors in Phoenix and in New York.
We have two in each state.
Yeah.
And then, we're about to have 4 people in production right now. So Dustin, who's been doing an amazing job, and then Abby and Raymond. And we just hired a new head distiller, Mark, who's moving out here from Maryland officially in September, but he's coming next week to kind of start to do boots on the ground stuff.
Yeah,
so
nice.
We've really been able to expand the team in the last couple of years, which has been incredible.
And so to your question, as far as our kind of lifestyle or whatever,
Sure.
it's so the pressure's off because Kent has, he's really the decision maker. And so, I feel like I'm enjoying my job a lot more now.
Yeah.
It's because of the there's a ton of pressure from all angles. Amanda's probably got about, a ton of pressure.
Yeah, I
What
was
are
like,
you
the
thinking?
pressure's off. I was like, what are you drinking? No, but I think there's, if anything, I think there's more pressure now because we're growing and, we're raising more capital and we're increasing production. But I think there's a lot of reward in the sense that now that we have this larger team, like we can really focus on our roles and there's less kind of like mission creep,
Sure.
So I feel like
We're able to focus.
yeah, I mean, I think
yeah.
for a long time I was like all over the place and like really frustrated a lot of my coworkers and stuff. And now that I'm able to focus on tasks and see them through to completion, which is like amazing. So I think I think there's more pressure, but I think it's more fun for sure.
And so when I evaluate pressure, I kind of allude to, how well am I sleeping? At night?
Yeah, I was thinking the same
And I'm
thing.
sleeping really well. So
There you go.
I love it. I love it.
I don't
There
know
you
if Kent
go.
is, but
No, I don't think that is. That's what
But
happens when you
that's-
pass the torch. Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
he assumed that torch, right?
Yes.
Like happily. Yeah.
Yes.
That's incredible. I mean, because just in the 4 years since you were on
Yeah.
Tap That AZ, just to see the growth from that point. I mean, when the first time I had it, it just blew me away because, I've had American whiskeys. Typically, people think of bourbon, right?
Yeah.
But that smokiness just took it. And I know that's not the classic; that's the
Yeah.
Dorado. But that's where it took it to a different level for me. I'm like, because it goes from a great spirit to an experience. It really
Yeah.
is,
I think that's a great way of describing it.
Yeah.
Is it takes it to an experience? Because
Yeah.
I was up in Cottonwood recently doing a shoot for the magazine, and I was at Strata, which is a great new bar up there by the people behind a lot of stuff in Cottonwood. And of course, on the shelf, I see Del Bac, and I'm like, that makes you feel like you're in Arizona, even though you're in Arizona. When you see products that are kind of iconic Arizona products, and use the imagery that you're close with, and it has that experience, even just seeing it on the shelf kind of ties you into the state more. And I think that's one of the cool things about a lot of products that you see in the food and beverage market in Arizona. Another great one is Arizona Wilderness. When you see them on draft, you're like, that reminds you of how special of a place Arizona is. And working with folks like yourself, that connection there, it's a special thing.
Yeah, and they're such incredible people. AZ Wilderness. I mean,
Yeah,
they do an amazing job.
we have a great relationship with Arizona Wilderness. They it's a mutual admiration.
Yeah, it's like a
situation.
gratitude fight every time.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like
A lot more
they're,
grateful.
They're
A lot
so
more.
incredible. Yeah,
And actually, so we're
and such advocates for so many things. The environment and social justice, and I really appreciate the way that they've put themselves out there, and they're doing a really good job.
We're actually so in the fall we're celebrating our 10th year anniversary, and we're going to have a big party down here in Tucson at Westbound.
Yep, at the Annex.
At the Annex
On November 13th. That's a Saturday.
And
We'll have some special releases there that night.
Nice.
Yep. So our 10-year anniversary release will be available there that day, and Westbound's going to do a private barrel as well.
Wow.
That they'll launch that day. And then, we'll have, food, music, some limited edition 10-year merchandise, which is going to be really fun.
We're going to have some seminars.
Yep. We're going to do a cocktail workshop with Jax and Dustin. And we're also going to do, we haven't kind of really finalized this, but I think we were going to do an American Single Malt tasting panel too.
Oh, really?
So to, taste our stuff with like, Westland and Westward, and there are other people that are just producing like phenomenal spirits. So we thought it'd be really fun to kind of taste everything together. And then ahead of that, October 23rd, which is a Saturday, we are going to do a 10-year anniversary party at AZ Wilderness in Phoenix,
nice.
and that'll kind of have the same program, some seminars, some cocktails. That limited edition 10-year Calvados finish will be available that day. I think they're going to do a private barrel as well. Oh, and then the other cool thing.
Age some a stout or something in our barrels, which they've done before. So
I think they're gonna.
Can you plan a cooler anniversary event? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much better.
I know.
Than that.
Yeah, I'm just like, man,
it's pretty. And then our goal for both events also is to, we've had so many people over the years that have, either used our barrels to age coffee beans or hot sauce. Or
hot sauce, really?
Yeah. Or,
did you know that?
I did not know about that.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Or spirits to, infuse in sausages, or, Monsoon Chocolate here has done a chocolate truffle. So we're going to try and corral all these people together to hopefully do like a mini Del Bac Farmers Market at both events where you could buy all of these collaborative things. Because again, it's all about this community is really stellar. So we'd like to include everyone on that day.
And people that dig your stuff are going to dig those things you introduce them to, those brands that are related, right? Like and vice versa, right? Like Arizona Wilderness might introduce their fans to you guys.
Totally.
Like, oh shit, I didn't know there was an Arizona made whiskey. Yeah.
Exactly.
And people who buy into those local storylines with the products that they're consuming are going to love it, whether it's you introducing someone from Arizona Wilderness to your stuff or vice versa. And the whole farmers market idea is just another evolution of that. And I think that's one of the coolest things about the local food and beverage industry is you get so much of that crossover and collaboration. We've probably said it on every episode now, but if there's one thing we can be guaranteed of is no matter who we're talking to, there's going to be some sort of really cool collaboration that really tells the story of Arizona food and beverage, like Wilderness with Teppery beans and all the other people using that product, or Perry Landon Cattle, who was in the last issue of the magazine. They're recycling green waste and then feeding it to their cattle and making more sustainable beef through that. It's just, there's so many crossovers from, Perry Landon Cattle selling their beef to Wilderness, Four Peaks, who gives them some spent wood to do it. It's a crazy web that you almost can't even believe it if you're sitting there looking at it and talking about it. It's pretty incredible.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It is really fun.
All of our spent grain goes to a local hog farmer, Rod at E&R Pork. And he produces amazing pork that he sells throughout the state now. So we're hoping he'll show up too. And every year he's really sweet. He always lays some pork on us and the staff, which is always a really exciting day.
Always a good friend to have, for sure.
Well, and I don't know if you would technically call it terroir or what, but how can you get more local pork than taking some malt that's smoked over by mesquite wood and then having that feed the pork that you're eating? And then if you smoke that over some more mesquite wood, I mean, come on.
Man, that's
I know.
the circle of life. So we got now we're doing the Dorado.
The Dorado, yeah. So this is the brainchild of the whole project. And like Amanda said, Elaine is kicking herself because she wants me to retire, but that's not happening anytime soon. But I am slowing down. It's awesome. So in the region of Scotland called the Islay region, Islay, they pronounce it Islay, but that's the region where they really use a lot of peat to dry their malt.
Is that like Lafrogue and like
Yeah.
Lagavulin? And,
Yeah,
yeah.
and Ardbeg and Talisker, but yeah.
Yeah.
And so there are millions of people around the world that love those heavily peated Islay Scotches.
Like me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too, yeah.
And so the one big difference between mesquite and peat, though, is that mesquite seems a little softer on the palate than peat. And it doesn't give you that, if you know, that iodine, note on the palate and the nose.
Like Band-Aid.
Kind of Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
I have friends, and it sounds like you guys too, who just love that. Okay. And I've
I don't
never
like
been.
Band-Aids, no.
You don't want to eat Band-Aids? Weird.
But it's a thing. I mean, there's
Yeah.
all over the world. And so, but I've never been super fond of that element. And so, and mesquite doesn't give you that, that note.
Yeah.
And so it is very, the mesquite is very evocative of the desert. And Luke, when you were talking earlier about when you see, AZ Wilderness or Whiskey Del Bac on a shelf somewhere, you kind of know you're in Arizona. Well, the Dorado is very evocative of, desert campfires when when you've been camping out in the desert or in the, walking through a neighborhood in Phoenix or Tucson or anywhere where, on a cold winter's night and you're, smelling the mesquite smoke coming from somebody's fireplace. And, it is so Arizona.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I see the bottle and when I take a sip of it and I just close my eyes, I imagine going along, an old dusty road, not in a car or anything, but in like a horse and carriage, and you just see hanging out the back a bottle of Whiskey Del Bac. That's where it brings me.
Yeah. Well,
I love that.
A couple years ago, Wilderness invited me out to one of their Camp Cool ships.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're like, hey, come out, do a podcast, hang out. You're going to meet all these, people from these breweries across the world, really, like the people they connect with. So I'm like, well, normally I'm the person that brings like good beer to like a party. I'm like, well, I can't do that like with these guys. So I brought a bottle of Whiskey Del Bac.
Awesome.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then there was never like the right time to bring it out, and then we're all around the fire. So I tell them about it, and it goes around the fire, and probably 30 people drank it.
Cool.
Got to me, none left.
Oh my
I didn't
God.
get any of it. It was me and one other person, and they didn't get any of it. And I was like, I've had it. I'm sorry, dude. Like he missed out. But yeah, it was really cool to see that because they loved it. Like
How long ago was that?
Probably 2 years ago.
Nice.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
So by that time, I think they knew about us.
Yeah,
The owners.
But there were
okay.
people from
From
all
all
over.
over.
Yeah, there were breweries from California, Oregon,
Oh,
cool.
I think Finland. There was a brewery from Finland.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm
cool.
like, this is what Arizona
That
tastes
sounds like
Yeah.
people who would be traveling via horse and carriage
Yeah.
to come over west. I'm telling you, just every time.
It is full circle. That's a good point.
Oh, that's a great story.
So circling back to this, when you're tasting this, what kind of notes are you looking for that you expect to be in here that should be present?
So on the nose, I get a lot of like leather notes.
Mhm.
I get a little bit of kind of ancho chili. And then, you definitely get the mesquite on the nose. And then on the palate, the mesquite comes across a little stronger. And on the palate, you get some kind of cherry. You can get cherry notes on it. As it sits in the glass and you go back to the nose, you often will get, chocolate notes along with,
Caramel.
definitely caramel
Yeah.
on the nose and the palate as well.
Can I try a little bit more?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
please do.
I drank
Well,
it too
and
quick in
the,
the first
uh,
description.
The classic is, for me, a lot more of that caramel
Yeah.
type nose. Like when
Yeah.
you smell it, it almost smells like it's going to be sweet, or like the flavor you might get from a brittle, but a little
Yeah.
bit more booze
Totally.
infused into it. Whereas this, obviously the smoke is going to be very present, but you still get some of the flavors of the classic. Like you were saying, you smell the caramel, and to be able to taste that stuff in a whiskey, for me, having not tasted, hundreds of whiskeys before, if I can pick up on that, I feel like a lot of people can pick up on that. And that's why I feel like whenever I'm buying a gift for someone that likes whiskey, it's like a no-brainer for me, because I can go to Total Wine, pick up a bottle, and anyone who likes whiskey is going to pick that up and enjoy it. And especially if they live in Arizona, it's even more of a story to tell, and it has that personal touch to it.
Yeah, I was going to say they'll enjoy it on multiple levels, right? Like the story, like the taste, like the design, everything's like, you're just like, but wait, there's more, right?
Exactly.
Is all of the wood, is it all Arizona mesquite?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and early on, after Elaine had that idea, that was late 2006.
Well, hold on, I don't know do we really get into that? Like what idea she had?
To dry the malt over barley.
Oh, that, yes.
Over mesquite fire.
Yeah.
So I immediately thought, oh my God, that's a great idea. Here's another one. I got to make a mesquite barrel.
Oh God.
I'm going to char the inside and age whiskey in that, and it's going to taste fabulous. So I did, and it was horrible.
I have a feeling that was the worst one of all.
It was very
so
tannic.
Gross. It was acrid.
Yeah.
It was the color of grenadine. I mean, I've never seen.
Which is kind
Really?
of pretty.
Which is kind
That
of
is pretty,
but
yeah,
not
but-
for maybe for grenadine, but not for a whiskey.
Whiskey, not something
Yeah.
that's
It was
it's got
horrible.
to be intentional.
Yeah.
It was horrible. And my poor father, after being a carpenter for his entire life, making a mesquite barrel to age his whiskey in, he finally cut off a finger.
The end, just a little bit of
Wow,
malt.
she's really
Oh
pointing
yeah,
that.
he's like
GoPro
just
to
a
zoom in.
little bit of your finger. I like that as a qualifier.
So that was, I was making a little kind of 2-gallon barrel, and finally had an accident after all those years. But as I like to point out, it's so in the woodworking circles, it's that's called joining the Nub Club.
Yeah.
It's kind of a little
badge of honor,
So
yeah.
I feel like you were pretty casual about it too. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like it happened. You're like, all right, it's time.
Oh,
and everyone
totally.
knows what that means. Nothing else was said. And
yeah.
Finally
it's like your
happened.
fire plan, but the
Yeah.
joining the Nub Club plan.
Did you drive yourself to the hospital?
Luciano
drove you.
Yeah, I mean, it was traumatic when it happened, no question.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was more like pissed at myself than anything.
And I don't mean to make light of it, but that's kind of what I expected, right? Is less fear and more just like,
Finally happened.
We make
Damn.
light of it all the time.
Yeah. She was pushing that. You serious? She was like, yeah.
Little nubbin.
So what's next for you guys? You're coming up on your 10-year anniversary. I don't know if you have, you obviously talked about those events planned. If you have some more grandiose vision beyond that, or just kind of to keep improving things.
I think it's really just to keep on improving things. I mean, I sometimes I think we kind of fantasize about, venturing into other spirits. But I think at the end of the day, we're kind of purists in what we do.
So yeah, I mean, you're just going to continue making American Single Malt.
Until we die.
We're going to, we love our distillers cut releases. Those are always either our mesquited or our unmesquited whiskeys, classic, matured in new oak and then finished in like bourbon casks or Calvados Madeira or cognac
This next one
casks.
is rye.
That's what the distillers cuts are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish we had some here today, but sorry.
No worries, I guess next time.
But they always go really fast.
Yeah, they're really small releases. This next one that's going to launch on Monday is 698 bottles nationwide. So they go really quickly. We've played with a lot of barrel finishes. I think the goal for the future would be to, do the same, pick 2 finishes that we're really happy with and release those consistently on an annual basis. Because where we are now, we kind of don't know what's going to be available.
Sure.
And I think it's been really fun I know it was really fun for Nathan when he was here. And he really made some beautiful distillers cuts. And Dustin and the team, now Veronica, who was with us, did some fun stuff. But I think having some special releases that were consistent would be really cool.
And so we'll probably do one
or two
one-offs like we're doing now. So kind of experimental either, or something that we may return to that we liked, but like the Sauterne cask finish, which is our last one.
It's really
Those
pretty.
barrels just aren't very available.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we could never make that a permanent, release.
But
So-
I think expanding the barrel program
Yeah.
In general
To be
is,
able to
is
let
a
'em sit.
goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, expanding our sales nationally, and then our board and Kent, our CEO, are really intent on building a new distillery.
Building something with more of a consumer-facing aspect.
yeah.
This is a weird location that we're in. This is not
It's very Tucson.
This is
now.
not a Grant and the freeway. Yeah. It's a real sexy part of town. So I think we'd and we're running out of space here. So I think the plan and the goal and kind of what we're working on now is, putting some numbers together to really build a destination facility.
That'd be bad.
How many
Yeah.
states are
That'd
you
be
guys in
so
right
cool.
now?
I just looked we're in 17 states
Okay.
right now.
Nice.
Some of those are really small market, like very.
I think a lot of them are. I mean, and my goal would actually to not be going into more states, but to actually be able to, really service the states that we're in
Sure.
better,
Yeah.
and put more focus on those accounts.
Other than Arizona, which is our biggest market, the other states that are, we have decent sales in are New York and California.
Yep.
So
Texas is doing
Texas,
some stuff. But we have some really good traction in New York.
That's got to be a pretty novel type of thing out there. Not that it's
Yeah.
not novel already and unique in that way, but to bring that across the entire country is definitely a different component.
Yeah, I think people back east appreciate the regionalism and the fact that it's 100% own make. There are a lot of really incredible bar programs out there like Death and Co, who have been like great supporters of our little whiskey company. But I think they always get really excited about the distillers cuts, and I think they're really into the 100% own make, even for cocktail purposes, which is cool.
Yeah.
So,
Didn't
but I
they
think
put us in didn't they put Distiller's Cut in an actual cocktail?
yeah.
Which is like,
Shannon T-Bay did that. It was pretty cool, and they sold out in a matter of weeks.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, for like a $24 cocktail. But I think market-wise, Chicago's our next big focus for next year. Yeah, we'd like to explore the Midwest a bit more.
yeah.
If you need somebody to go and like explore and
You're hired.
spread the word. Yeah.
Done.
Perfect. All right.
But you have to go via horse and carriage. I'm telling you the whole way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Well, thank you guys so much for sitting down with us. It's
Yeah.
awesome to hear, everything that's gone on over the past 10 years, arriving at your 10-year anniversary, and to have lofty but very achievable and good goals. You know what I mean? It's not like
Yeah.
you're trying to take over the world and recreate whiskey. You're bringing the story of Arizona and Tucson to the rest of the country, and I think that's fantastic.
Yay.
Well, thank you guys very
Yeah.
much. It was great talking to you guys. Good
Nice
to
to
see you
see
again,
you.
Eric.
Me too. Yeah, absolutely.
And so, I hope your project is going well.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like it is.
We're
Yeah.
doing well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Eating and drinking.
which
for
is
a living.
how I'll leave it. Check out Whiskey Del Bac in the next issue of A Taste of AZ magazine in our Spirit Roundup, written by the wonderful Allison Balin Batts, who's just killing it.
Oh,
She's
cool.
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, so you guys are pretty entrepreneurial yourselves.
We
I
try.
guess you could say so.
Try.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We just don't want to work for anybody else, so we have to figure this out somehow.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
thanks so
cool.
much, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.